G'day citizens, welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Algared and Expat is joining us for this one. How are you two doing?
Hi, Expat. Hi, Expat. How are you going?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm currently preparing inside Star Citizen for this big Anzia race event, which is why I can't have the camera on. But I got hijacked by two gentlemen today, and they said, "Hey, can you come and talk about ship stuff?" And I was like, "Ships? Yes, please. Okay,
Yes.
let's do it."
So we haven't
Those guys are horrible.
Yeah, who were they? Anyway. So what we're going to do is going to go through Expat. Expat hasn't really had a good chance to look at this, but this is actually what Algared took from John Crew's post on Spectrum about the component changes. So this is literally a copy of that. And then Algared's gone through and taken information from in-game and the Matrix of Lies and cross-referenced
The Matrix of what?
That's what we call it, the Matrix of Lies, because it's called the Ship Matrix, but we call it the Matrix of Lies because it's full of bullshit. None of it's real or accurate in any way, shape, or form. So it's the Matrix of Lies. That's what we call it.
I originally started off doing the Matrix to check the components, and then I went, hang on. Then I thought, oh, I'll check with Urkel, and I started checking with Urkel, and I thought, I've got to check in game as well. So Urkel and in game actually agreed, so I just thought that I'll just keep it as in game.
Yeah.
But the Matrix was at times all over the shop.
So if you guys want to talk about ships outside, we're going to probably talk about 3 or 4 today. The real kind of outliers, yeah, because most of them are positive or very slight nerfs, so they don't really count so much. But there is 3 probably in descending order. You'd probably go Redeemer, 400i, and then the Vanguard is different to all the other ones below. But I would say it's very low down compared to
they're the concerns, and then you've got ships like the Gladiator that is a real, it's got something it really needed. So
so I would say overall it's a big positive. But there's some just concerns, and it was really obvious on today's stream. There was a lot of questions that were going back and forth, and we know that there's going to be a lot of people talking about this, so we kind of wanted to weigh in. And yeah, so I guess we'll tell you about it, Expat, and you can just tell us your thoughts if that's
okay.
So I'll start with the Redeemer. I think that's probably, or do you want to leave that for last, because that's probably the big one. So let's start. Let's go opposite. We'll go Vanguard up.
Well, I was going to say let's start with a positive first. Let's do the Gladiator because the Gladiator's right there.
All right. I wasn't going to go through the Gladiator. I was just going to go through the Vanguard.
Yeah, I know,
Redeemer.
But I thought let's do something positive. Let's make this a positive aspect, and then we can go through the aspects of what's here as well. So what you see here is the blue. Blue is what the changes are going to be. Red is what's in game at the moment, and purple is what the Matrix of Lies says. And I'll just move this way so you can see it.
Is it purple because it's Willy Wonka and crazy and doesn't make sense? Is that the why I picked purple?
No, well, it was just because I had already used blue and red.
Why not green or yellow? Anyway, I digress.
So you can see the different way of naming. We've got the small, we've got the size 1 differentiation as well. So the Gladiator had size 1 power plant, 2 size 1 shield. It's now got one size 2 power plant, and 1 size 2 shield. So that's an upgrade in that.
It's almost upgraded by 4 times, if you know. So essentially, one of the things we'll talk about today is 3 of the same size is almost like 1 step behind the size above. So 3 size 1s is, if you kind of added another one, it would go to a single size 2. That's kind of roughly where they sit at, and that's been described to us a few times by different members of the ship team over the years. So in this case, when it's gone up a whole size like that, it's almost like it's 4 times as powerful. Not quite, but that's kind of a rough figure.
So that's a really good upgrade for the Gladiator. It gives it more survivability because the shields are stronger.
Yeah. As well as the power plant, like they both doubled.
And it's got a greater power plant, so it can do stuff as well. The downside of that is in terms of shields, there's no redundancy on that shield. So that's the little thing. But the other big thing that's really a positive for the Gladiator is it's gone from the wing missile mounts, instead of being size 3 missile mounts, are now size 4, which means you could have 4 size 4 missiles.
Yeah.
on the wings, or 6 size or 8 size 3s, or the missile count's gone up quite a lot with that. So that's a real positive.
I just realized I read that wrong. It's 2 times S1 shields. So no, it's not 4 times shields. Yeah, my bad. Sorry. But yeah. So yeah, that's one of the positives, and again, you can look at a lot of them. Like that's even if you look at just take the characters example because it's already on screen and above, you can see there that it's basically gone from 3 size 3s up to I believe that's an S4. So it makes it or is that no? That's a downgrade, isn't it, Algared? Yeah, it's a downgrade.
Yes, that'd be a downgrade.
Yeah, so that one stepped down. So yeah, so some of them
The
are
question
nerfs and
is,
some
does this make the Gladiator a viable ship now in the grand scheme, or is this just a consolation?
So what you're
Consolation
essentially what you're talking about here, and I think that's going to be the whole takeaway for me of this whole episode, is that I want to see these changes before I kind of want to further comment, because we've seen so many changes like this in the past and people lose their mind, and then it comes out and it's like, oh, they made all these other changes too, and you just don't know how it's going to fall out. Yep. And again, with all the master modes, atmospheric flight, armor, blah 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 blah, like, there's just so many things in there.
Well, I mean, right now, of course, it's like, quite a popular Spectrum post is they're asking for feedback on the flight model.
Yeah.
Initially, it had master modes in the the original post, and they got rid of it because obviously everyone was mentioning master modes. So yeah, I mean, these changes are coming out, so it's like you're asking for feedback, but then you're also making these big swathing changes. So yeah, it's a curious situation.
I've got used to the new flight model. I totally like it with the SCM and the nav mode. I've got no problem with it. Logically moving it to mouse 1 instead of holding B and stuff like that, I think it all kind of makes sense. And I actually like to fly in it more now than I did before. But that's
interesting.
That's my thing. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And I can see why they're making the changes, because it brings turrets and that and gives them benefits and stuff like that. Again, as I said, my takeaway is you've got to let the whole thing come in and see what it's looked like. And yes, you can bring up criticisms and concerns, but don't say you need to do this. They have all the moving parts. We don't. So it's a sum of its part problem.
But having said that, when we looked at the Gladiator in the past, we'd have said the Gladiator needs love. It was falling way behind. It was just a dog's breakfast. It was a much loved ship, but it just didn't do it. And I think this really, as John Crew said at the beginning of his Spectrum post, these were changes to bring everything kind of in line with a new way of doing power, components and stuff. And I think this also ties in with the way they'll do repair and do the engineering stuff. So
again, as Algared's describing, there are pieces that are missing. Like, we don't know about batteries. We don't know about the shield emitters that are on the outside of the ship, where the shield generators are inside. There's a few components we just haven't seen. So again, we don't have all the information, so we cannot make until we see it. We just can't.
Not to diverge off topic, but I mean, I am curious how all this is going to work with, like, how small fighters and stuff is going to work with engineering. We've only seen the big ships, right? So maybe some of these changes are due to that.
That's their downside. You've got to stop your ship and get out an EVA to repair them. That is their downside. That's just how it is. So when you've got internals of a ship, you can have someone else walk around and repair it while you're flying it. So even a cutter, if it is got a second person in it, you could technically almost out-sustain if you had enough parts and stuff to repair, right? You could possibly out-sustain. Don't think so. You'd have to be a really good pilot, but you've got a chance because you can have someone repair the pieces. You know what I mean?
Well, the word on the street, as far as social media goes, is I've seen a lot of posts, positive posts about the Gladiator changes. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's basically it.
Oh, I think the Gladiator changes are bloody awesome. It's about time it had an upgrade.
So go ahead.
So yeah. No, go.
So let's get into to the ones I really wanted to talk about, because we're like 10 minutes into the video and I haven't even got to where I wanted to go. So the Vanguard, right? So let's start. This is probably the smallest kind of.
I used to love the Vanguard.
Well, that's a story for another time, because we could sit here and talk about that for a long time, couldn't we? We have problems with that ship as well. But long story short,
modular, guys.
Yeah. So long story short, if you look up there what Algared's thought, they essentially went from 2 components that were the power plants to 1. So the problem with that is all the other components in the Vanguard are redundant. So there are 2 shield generators, there used to be 2 power plants, there used to be 2 radars, blah blah blah. And so if one broke, you had a redundancy because it was a long range fighter. So by pushing them together,
and militaristic as well, it's kind of like, you know, that redundancy seems important.
I personally would have made an allowance, and if you can actually see up there where it says the Sentinel has an additional small power plant, I would have made it 1 medium and 1 small, and I would have made the Sentinel so it's got 2 mediums. Now that might be a bit unbalanced, so I don't know again, but just having the small would have given it that redundancy, and I think that's the biggest problem with this one, because it was built into it, this redundancy.
Yeah, the whole purpose of this ship with being multi-crew as well. So it was one of the first multi-crew fighters with internals. So it was that heavy fighter for going in, being the first fighter in literally the vanguard of the fleet. It's supposed to go in, be able to take and absorb a lot of damage and fly home.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to have those redundancies. And this change just seems to be taking that away. And
knowing that now, Algared, aren't you going to focus and tack that? Like, because you know it's only got 1 power plant. Like, this is right. We just hit it with distortions until it can't move anymore. Where before, if it had the 2 power plants, it wouldn't have been as easy to do so. So
sorry, I'm gonna talk about the physicality of the interior of the ship. But do you think it's got something to do with the balance of the fact that the Vanguard has so much of its components very quickly accessible by the pilot?
No, I think it's just that they made these changes because they needed to be made. And that's just it in a nutshell.
Like, one of the things I did like about the Vanguard as well was you didn't always have all your components in the same space. So you have your component bay under the stairs. You have a component bay, so lots of different areas where they were putting little areas where components would go.
Yeah.
Again, for that redundancy aspect.
Yeah. Well, to look at this, how it's got the 2 size 2s, they could have technically gone to 4 size, 4 smalls. But the problem with that is I don't think that ship's got enough space. Because like they had to hide all the components under the ground and all that shit. They're just like, oh, if we've got to double this, there's not enough room to put them in. And I think that's why they've gone to 1 medium.
I wonder if part of the problem with that originally was also the fact that it was modular. Because remember that middle section was kind of originally the escape pod.
You can't have those components go with it. That's why it's also packed in. So they're either packed in the front up near the pilot, and you'll also remember above the ramp on the way out, that's where the quantum drive is. So the only spot really left, if you think about it, would be on one of those sides back there. And they'd have to put it at the back or something like that. But again, being at the front is an advantage because if you're shooting it as it's flying away, you're less likely to take it out. The only thing susceptible at the moment is the quantum drive. So I don't know. Yeah. My first thought when they did that was like, oh, they can't fit them in. There's too many of them.
And I think the advantage of, I don't think the pilot being able to access those components at the front is necessarily an advantage because it's a multi-crew ship. It's usually got your crew member would be accessing those components and need repair.
He'd be standing behind you, talking to you while he's repairing them and stuff like that. So so they're the minor ones out of the way, right? So now we move on to, I think we'll go down and do the 400i because that's probably the next one along. And so this is probably the most drastic cut, right? There are some other little positive ones and negative ones along the way, but this is the big one. So you can see there, Expat, it's gone from 3 size 2s in power plants and 3 size 2s in coolers, and they've chopped 2 of them. So it's literally a third as powerful as it was in both power plant and cooler.
However, do we know if the power plants and coolers are going to maintain the same stats as we understand them now?
Well, here's the thing.
That might not be as big a nerf as you think.
So generally,
depending on how those are going to work.
But generally across the board, they've all been buffed or very, very smallly dropped. That is the only one that lost by over 50%.
Or in the case of the 300R, no obvious change at all.
Yeah.
I think for the 400i, the reason why it's a concern is because the 400i did have redundancy. That was one of the things that was kind of
It's an Origin.
Seemed to be the hallmark of Origin as well.
Yeah,
and again, it's kind of like a cruiser /explorer, right?
Well,
so you imagine it goes out for longer.
So most of them, especially the 400 and up, traditionally were like flying safe rooms. So they have that over-engineered, like the battle bridge on the 890. It's the same thing on the 600i. Like they just have, you can have one person control all the guns type of thing. This has lost a lot of that. It's kind of dropped back now to more of, it's less defense room and more luxury. That's where I'm going with this now. It's kind of,
yeah. Do you think they're trying to reduce its combat effectiveness basically, and its appearance on the battlefield?
Well, I wonder. It makes me think about other ships. Are they going to do the same thing with the 890 or the 600, or I'm just curious where it's going.
Well, it is also interesting that you've raised that, Expat, because in the Spectrum post, that's one of the things John Cruz says. We looked at the ships in game and the way they're being used, and as we're making the changes based on the number of components, we also want to bring these in so the ships are functioning the way they were intended. And so that probably does tie into it. But when you've got a ship that had redundancies, and it's now got no redundancies, I think that's a concern. And
well, I think also to go along with that, if it's about how people are using them, maybe it's got more to do with the guns and stuff that the 400i has, as opposed to the defensive capabilities. I would imagine you would buff the defensive capabilities because it's supposed to be more passive, right? And it's got a rich person on board. It's more passive. You'd probably want to have more redundancy in that situation because that person, that VIP, wants to survive, right?
Well, to kind of bring it back to something, I've just pulled up a ship, right, at random. I thought, what's another new ship that we know that's coming? I've got the Zeus here, right? And I'm looking at some of the things on the Zeus. So what are the ones that were nerfed there? We've got the power plant and the cooler. So if I look at the cooler, it's 2 size 2s, right? So it's already double what this is going to be. And it's also got 2 size 2 coolers. So, but it costs more than the Zeus. You see where I'm going with this? So basically, we've always said it's a medium ship masquerading as a large ship, but now it really is a medium ship that just happens to be larger for no reason. Do you know what I mean? Because it's
interesting.
Well, again, we don't know what other components have changed, but again,
are they trying to separate it even further from the 600i? So there's like a big financial jump and capability jump?
I can't tell you why, because honestly, if I looked at that, when it was at 3 components, you can kind of go, it's power. The other thing I'd point out is it hasn't lost its shield components or anything like that. They've probably just made it so it's harder for the shield to regenerate. Right? That's probably, because like I look at that, it overheats more. It basically can't recharge as fast. That's what I take out of that, because they also haven't changed the other components like the shields and stuff. So it's got to.
And the thing is, if we think about armor, I don't think it's necessarily compensating with armor. For example, like a Valkyrie would, if the same thing was happening to a Valkyrie, for example, it's supposed to have the additional of the armor. So we'll see how much of a effect that plays in, right?
Yeah. Again, as I said, I think it really comes down to the fact that they want it to have a good shield, but they don't want it to keep refreshing too quickly. That's why they've cut the number down. But yeah, that's just me. But yeah, so that's just interesting to know. And then we go on to the one that was really the dog's breakfast that everyone was kind of talking about in chat and stuff, and that's the Redeemer. And this is the hardest one to understand, because I as I said to Algared, they've castrated my baby.
There's so much Redeemer love out there, isn't there? There is.
Well, X loves Redeemer.
Yeah, but now I've had the kind of day to think about it. So we did this at 6 a.m. our time.
Didn't that win last year's Ship Showdown?
No, it came second in the thing.
Oh, okay.
So I've essentially had like 16 hours to think about it, right? So it's now 10 p.m. when we started the stream, it was 6 a.m. And no, we haven't slept. Anyway, but so long story short, they have essentially taken it from 2 size 3 shield generators to 6 size 2, so that's almost like one step down, but then obviously you get more of them, so you got more redundancy, and they can also recharge at different levels and stuff like that. So there's a slight positive there and a negative, but the real thing that kicks it in the teeth, and this is what took me the longest time to understand, is the size 5 turret guns, both of them have dropped to size 4s. So what that basically, what that means is the guns.
And has the Connie had the same thing happen or no?
We'll get to that. There's a lot to digest here.
Interesting.
So basically, they now have the same size guns that the pilot has, but the pilot also has 2 additional 3s. So there's a psychological thing there where it's almost like Scorpion versus Hurricane, where the pilot is not going to give a shit about the turret gunners as much anymore, because in the Hurricane, you fly to service the turret gunner. In the Scorpius, you just do your own thing. And that's what's going to happen in this, because this is the other part. They've buffed the flight, right? So because there's benefits, like when the guns go down in size, the turrets will rotate faster. But also, they want it to fly better. And also, it looks like they're going to... with the more shield generators, they should regenerate faster, but it's also going to have the bigger power plant, so they should definitely regenerate faster. So just let me finish, because I'm almost finished. Yeah. So basically, no, it's okay. It's okay. There's a lag because you're in Dubai. It's fine. So basically, what it looks like is happening is it's going from, as it is now, as this sluggish kind of beast of an overpowered kind of snipery type of thing, to where it's going to be more like a heavy fighter that's tanky-ish. So it's going to be like a tank in a game where you have an evasion tank where it dodges you with the speed, but it's also got the shields of a shield tank. So it's super tanky or super sustainable, but because the guns have dropped to size 4s, it's got to go toe-to-toe with you. So you've got to think of the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead has got those 4 size 4s on each turret. This only has 2 on each turret. But the movability in the shield. So it's like the whole float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. It is going to dodge you and maneuver around you. So you were mentioning ships like the Corsair and the Connie. It's got, if you can get behind the Corsair's done. The Connie's done as well. Okay. Because its their main guns are on the front. And that's where all the size 5s are. They're all on the front.
So I'm gonna speculate here. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking any stance on, what they've done here, because I don't want to get wrapped up in controversy of, people's baby Redeemer. But I've got a sneaky suspicion that perhaps the reduction in the effectiveness of the turrets and more of the firepower going into the pilot's hands could have something to do with them expecting less bums to be in seats during combat. So, like if someone has to get up to fix components, that's one turret that's no longer active. You know what I mean?
There's also room for a lot more people in that thing. Like there's actually got 4 jump seats, and it's got 2 other turret gunners beside.
But do you expect somebody just to simply be waiting for damage to happen, or do you expect the turret gunner to have a multi-role?
If you were going to take someone out of one of the turrets, it would either be the rear turret or the one that controls the pilot turret under the chin, right? And which is the size 4s, right? So essentially, if you think about it now, it's actually got, I could be wrong there. It's maybe, I'd have to go back and check. But essentially, it's got 3 size 4 turrets, right? If I remember correctly. Am I right on that, David? Or was it the size 3s? It's the size 3s on the chin? No, it's the size 3s on the chin. I am wrong. It is the size 3s on the chin. But you get my point, right? So it's essentially a 3 turret ship and a 4th turret at the back with those on it as well, right? But I'd be taking them off the smaller turrets before I take them off the bigger turrets to do engineering tasks. And let's be honest, the person that's on the back turret is more than likely going to be the one that goes and gets in and does the engineering, because it's the least useful, right?
Right.
But again, if you start to bring this ship back to the Connie and the Corsair, there's 2 things here that I think that don't line up, right? And this is like when I remove everything, my concern actually comes down to price. Is an $80 difference between the Connie and the Redeemer being the more expensive ship, but now the Redeemer doesn't have the components to match where it should be. It doesn't have the size 5 guns anymore. They've also brought the shields down. You see what I mean? So like,
you know what's really interesting is you're talking about the price, and still it comes down to the idea of like, well, the price in store that people have to buy with real money, the price in game you can balance like overnight. You can just change it immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the big issue here is that you're messing with the effectiveness of ships that you have sold for real money.
Yeah, and
so
that's
when
the
people
problem.
start getting.
And that's the problem I'm
kicker.
talking about, yeah. Because again, you can look at the Corsair now and the Connie with size 5 guns. One's 240 and one's around 250. I'd have to go double check, but they're in that 240, 1250 ballpark. And then it's $80 to $7 more. You get to $330, and it's same price as a Caterpillar, but you're getting a ship that's a medium ship, not a large. And it's how do you justify that now? I just can't. They sold that thing on the rule of cool, and
well,
yeah, it's just not as cool as it
Well, how
was.
do you justify a lot of things nowadays? You know, the new exosuit. I'm just going to mention it. You know,
Well, yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, so for Expat's benefit, we was going to do a buyer's guide, but we're waiting for the QA to come out. So that's why we invited her. And then we're like, oh, well, we can't do that now because we've got to do some other stuff. But yeah, we'll try and get you back for that one. But if you're busy, we'll do it without you. But yeah,
It's all good.
So I think for me, Algared, I'll put this off to you and let you speak because you haven't spoken in a while. But you want to give us your kind of thoughts on the Redeemer and what are your takeaways?
Well, I know when you said, "Oh, look what they've done to Redeemer," you know, they've castrated. And I said, I don't really think so. You know, the shields have been upped, so the number of shields have been up. So you've got that aspect. My concern was the fact that you took away from the turret gunners, where I'd rather see the pilots have less and the turret gunners have more, because on a multi-crew ship you want to make sure the crew have stuff to do rather than just the pilot doing everything.
Yeah.
I wonder whether part of the changes are twofold. One, to try and pull the ship back closer to what the original concept of the ship was, which was 1 pilot, 2 crew, 4 to 6 Marines or cargo.
It had that dropship element.
2 turrets. Yeah, 2 turrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Role players can play these ships how they were meant to be played.
Yeah. Well, to Algared's benefit, John Crew has stated that one of the modules they would make is the original concept. So you would lose the beds and stuff, and it would get room for troops that you can drop off.
And I can remember even seeing the ship being designed in the next Great Star ship, but them having the drop sheets and still having the beds, but the measurements were all wrong. The beds were like, half size of what you'd want them to be. Yeah. But you were seeing the ship, and you're seeing the team show that they could put the ship in game and put the ship into range and modify, and do all the stuff they were wanting to do. But it's even based on what it was. The ship has been upgunned onto what the original design specs that the teams were given was.
Do you think, like I said this morning, with it having a more defensive stance, that actually leans more into some of the module variants, like the dropship and stuff like that? Like, I actually think it, like you saying, I'm agreeing with you. I think it actually suits the other modules in the originally planned design. Do you think does that make sense to you, the defensive stance?
The one that kind of doesn't make as much sense is that fast, zippy maneuverability. But I suppose if it's kind of like
you don't think that leads itself to a dropship at all?
If I was going to say, if it's kind of got that feel of being a Black Hawk, for dropping in the Marines, I think it's got that aspect. And you'll remember when the Javelin first came out, it was the hangar for the Javelin was meant to take a Redeemer.
True.
As its troop delivery for the Marines. So that was that kind of heavily reinforced that dropship idea that the Redeemer had.
What about you, Expat? Did you kind of agree with me and Algared there? It seems to be like it's leaning more into its original design, or do you think it's just? What do you think it would? Why are they making this change?
I think a lot of these design changes are going to be aspirational, in the hope to force the gameplay into a certain direction for certain ships. I think they can do all kinds of stuff like that all the time, constantly through the development, and hope that the player base reacts in the way that they hope. But ultimately, until we see the multiple different elements that are still to come in from the flight model and the control surfaces, and what does it even mean to be a dropship? What areas are you dropping into, and why? Like, why do we have a dropship? What are the missions that we use it for? What is what kind of gameplay do they build for that type of ship? Then I think you can look at it and go like, well, is that now a good dropship? It might be completely inappropriate for the eventual type of gameplay. Like, if we're living in a world with mech suits and everything, I mean, maybe it should hold mechs in the back. You know what I mean?
Believe it or not,
it is what it is.
SA, one of the military guys, he literally said that on stream today. He goes, like, I'm calling it now. If there's not a Titan suit drop variant of this, I'll be really surprised.
I've said it a couple of times, go back and have a look at what John Crew's Spectrum post said. Second paragraph. In addition to the changes below, you can expect handling and health changes to some vehicles to make sure they do not stray too far from their intended design behaviour.
Yeah.
So these changes, even though they're changing them to try and put everything in line with the changes we've seen with the Zeus and Retaliator and the others, they are also being made, I think, with it to try and realign the ships and the vehicles to what they originally said to be. And I think that's one of the things CIG have always said, look at what the ship's supposed to do, what it's intended to do, not what it does now, because we're going to be changing things.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because as it is in game right now, so to speak, that is nothing like it was. Like, you remember when it came out and I told you this was awesome on the P2, and they've nerfed the shit out of it. I think they clearly nerfed it to streamers talking about how it was decimating all their fighters and stuff, so they nerfed it, and basically they've just kind of dirty nerfed it and left it there for ages. But now bigger ships are coming back in. It's going to play this weird middle ground between more larger ships and I think it's going to be able to fight with both, quite honestly. I actually, the more time I spend analyzing the double defensiveness of this, I just think it's like it'll be able to go in and it's like death by 1,000 cuts, but it's also really maneuverable, so it's going to have enough play to stay there way longer than it should. But then it has to know when to get out and recharge the shields, or even worse, go back and repair and come back again. But that's just scary to me. Like, it really is a scary ship if you think about it. Like, a double tank is quite scary to think about.
Because it is supposed to be armoured, so it's got this armour plus lots of shields, so it's kind of got that.
Puts it in line with the Perseus. I think before I thought it was more offensive and the Perseus is more defensive. Now I both see them in the same line. It's more defensive, but if you can also make it a long range ship, it can kind of go all the way out, sustain itself out there, be scary because it could stay there for a long time and then come back. And that's actually more powerful than what it was, because it just didn't have the shields before. It didn't have the maneuverability. Think about in all the dogfights you saw with this thing on. It got picked off because someone just got behind it and they could blow it away in a Hornet. I saw that. That won't happen anymore because the turrets, it'll be able to rotate and just get out of it.
Look, I talked about this earlier in the stream today when the M50 first came out and we were trying to work out how good it was, and Dyson couldn't get behind me and a Connie. I was in a Connie, and the Connie backband was your super heavy fighter, and it was too maneuverable. The M50 could not outmaneuver it. It was just if it was in front of you, you could manage to keep it in front of you. So couldn't quite get them on an arc to shoot, but they couldn't get behind you to.
I'm kind of just what I'm hearing is it's that arc, it's that change again. We've had the game such a certain way for such a long time, and people are naturally resistant to change. Now we're getting them actually working on the game, so all these things seem like drastic changes. But as you rightly pointed out, Algared, that wasn't their original intent. How they are now, that was just placeholders so they could go work on Squadron 42, and also what Expat said about all the armor and all the and I reiterated that earlier. Just all the other things that are yet to come in. I think that is the takeaway, and I think we're all on the same page. That's what I'm hearing anyway.
However, just to play devil's advocate, I think there is a certain amount of language they've used and in the past, etc., and design changes that they've done, and etc., and that they've been trying to ship an idea for a long time, enough to, you know, get sales and get people on board and kind of get the majority of, like, you know, like appeal to like everybody.
Well, what I was going to say, though,
it doesn't appeal to nobody.
Is
I think maybe now they're starting to appeal to certain people more than they are other people, and that's why we're getting so many.
No, I don't think that's the. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's what Algared said. It was the original intent. Some of the ships went in, and well, again, the Redeemer is a really good example. It is nothing like it was originally sold as.
So do you think maybe a lot of people have just been kind of misled by?
I just think people have got used
feature incomplete version of Star Citizen.
I think a lot of people have just got used to how the ships are and the resistance to change. And I think the real takeaway for me, seeing there's a somewhat a mutual agreement between the three of us, and you even said this yourself, I think it has let them do it, see how it turns out, be critical all the way along and show concerns, but I want to see it before I just crap on it. And almost every time one of these dramas comes about, they get shat on, and then when it actually finally gets here, it's kind of okay. It's just because there's parts that we can't see. And again, you guys know as well as I do, trying to hold the whole game
2 years in the future.
Yeah, but try and hold the whole game in your head and like juggle all these plates and make it make sense is really hard to do. But then when it's in front of you, it's like click.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is it's like any MMO. You play, you know, Star Wars: The Old Republic. An update comes out and your character class has been changed, and there are elements you don't like and there are elements you do like, but you just get used to it, and it's just and I think this is part of it issue as well, as they're trying to pull the ships back into where they originally wanted them to be in terms of
probably
design.
A little bit longer than that, Algared, because they've been sitting there like for 10 years not doing anything. So that's like changing every 1 or 2 years. So it's like, I get where you're going, but this is just such a drastic departure. But it just shows how dormant this game has been, why they've been doing Squadron.
Not to bring up a wider topic necessarily, but just to mention, like, you know, and the reason why like ship changes and all this kind of stuff tend to, you know, hit a nerve, etc. I think it's more of like, it's less about your character getting changed or something, Algared. And I think there's just like a little bit of a feeling in the air at the moment that it's the identity of Star Citizen being changed, right? Some people feel that, right? Like, you know, like let's say you know, you meet Star Citizen at a bar, you know, 10 years ago, right? You move in together, and you know you're really having a great time, and you know you think you know them, but over time Star Citizen starts to change, and you know, before you know it, Star Citizen's walking out the door with the kids and the money.
Expat, who was he? What did he do to you, Expat? Tell us, come on, just get off your chest. Let us know who was. Who was this crew man? What did he do?
Who broke your heart? Like, so, you know, like.
But that's but it is about breaking hearts, right? And I think now more than ever, you know, we're starting to see that maybe it's not a direction shift, maybe it's the original vision, but
I would correct
it's starting to come more clear to people now, and maybe some people aren't liking so much what they see.
I just want to correct you on one point, right? Because I agree with you up to a point. And I think the thing is, this was always the original intent, though. I think people have come along and they have not ever seen the stuff that was talked about at the beginning. So they came in 2018 or wherever they came in, and they've just never ever heard that stuff talked about. And we see this a lot as people that have been here for the whole trip, right? And so to them, it's a shock. Oh, that's, you know, I'm kind of used to this, or this is what I wanted. I saw this. This is what I brought into. And now you're telling me all along it was going to be this. So I think some people are getting that harsh reality of, I thought I was buying this, but actually this was always the intent, but they never told me.
Did CIG feed on it, though?
I don't think they've ever fed on it. I think they just talked about it, and then look at Death of a Spaceman. That's the example we always go back to. They left that thing for like, I think it was like 10 or 11 years, and we had people going, oh, you know, that's all changed, it's too old now. And I'm like, no, what we've found is if once they talk about it, if they never talk about it again, 9 times out of 10 it very rarely changes. And the only thing that really changed when they redid Death of a Spaceman was they put the lore of the Vanguard stuff behind it. That was it. It was almost exactly the same in every single way. And it's the same thing again. Any documents that have been redone, very minute changes or small updates and stuff like that. And again, it's going back and like today we looked at the Redeemer as the Titan suit dropped, the Atlas, and we're like, oh, we're wondering if this could finally be the. Again, it's got Aliens vibes. They pitched it all as Aliens. The Reclaimers like the Nostromo. So maybe it's the cutter they promised for that, and it literally says pocket spacecraft. Now, if you can, what would you say a pocket spacecraft is in terms of Star Citizen right now? That's a snub. But it wasn't called a snub back then. So this is the other part I'm trying to get at, is they had different lingo and names back then. So people, it's about connecting dots. Some people just, we've been here for the whole trip, so we've seen the small little changes and stuff like that. And it's the unfortunate disadvantage you have is if you come in late, you are literally, well, you did it yourself. You tell me, you what, 3 years now you've been here? Look at the catch up you've had to do, right? And you, I don't mean saying this to shit on you, right? I'm just saying as an example, but you don't have the same knowledge me and Algared has, but we were here the whole time. You weren't, and I think that's just showing what it is.
I'm not as trapped in the Matrix as you guys. You know?
We're plugged
in.
Yeah.
Matrix.
Yeah. But you get my point, right? We naturally kind of just absorbed it over time. You had to go out and kind of stuff it down your throat to catch up. And again, it's really, there's just so much to digest. Nobody does that. They just don't do it. They don't have the time to do that, right? And I think that's kind of what it is. So if you talk to veteran people, they don't freak out like that. They you know, like I can talk to Griffin RPG from the Soul Citizens, and he's been here almost as long as I have, and a few other people, and they all kind of they all get it because we've seen the stages and the changes. And then you get newer people like Morph or Space Tomato that came around 2017, 2018, and they lose their goddamn mind because they haven't seen, like, to them they're getting to the 5, 6, 7 year mark and they're panicking back like where we were panicking where they joined.
So you don't think they're constantly trying to sell Star Citizen to a revolving door of new people with different ideas?
I think they are changing as things go along. Yes, and I do think, well, like earlier tonight before we started the show, you and Algared were talking about the wheel in the UI. That is clearly tailored at controllers, and it's clearly a part of Squadron 42. But both of you kind of said it doesn't work that much within Star Citizen, and I 100% agree with you. But it also makes it controls agnostic, because then you can use it in Star Citizen and in Squadron. But there's drawbacks to both.
To bring it back to the ship changes, do you think that these ship changes are anything to do with that apparent direction shift, or
I think it is.
Do you just think this is a natural progression?
I think it's them actually starting to work on the game.
I can only go by what John Crew said in his Spectrum post. We're making these changes to bring ships in line with the new ships we're bringing out with extra components, which ties in with engineering gameplay.
Actually, that's a really good point, Algared. Algared, remember when they brought the Zeus in and they'd done all the sweeping changes and the numbers and stats had gone up on the Zeus?
Yep. So
it's more of that.
So maybe the Zeus is a good blueprint for the future.
Well, when we looked at it last year, sorry, Algared, when we looked at it last year and the Zeus had came in, it just naturally had all these higher stats and everything else. So it looked amazing. And they're like, oh yeah, we've done a weapon and component pass on this one, but none other ship in the entire game. So when you went to buy it, it just looked buffed as hell. And when you take that into effect, it's now looks like they're doing those passes now and bringing everything else up, but it's taken them almost a year to do so.
So John Crew says, these changes are being brought in to make sure these ships are being pulled in to that arrangement. So the Redeemer's now got 6 shields, whereas it only had 2. So you've got things like that happening, but he's also saying we're bringing back to the original concept, the original feel of the ships. Now, I know you'll remember this, and I certainly remember it. Ben used to say time and time again, don't look at what the stats are. They're going to be constantly changing. Look at what the brief and design of what we say the ship can do.
I've said exactly that.
Look at the description, not the capabilities. And I think, and they've always said that.
How many times have you caught me saying, don't look at what the stats are now, look at what they've said it's going to be on release? That's my version of that, basically. So, I 100% agree.
They've always said that.
Yeah.
So it goes back to that question, do I think that they're now playing catch-up or doing that revolving door to try and get people in? No, I think they've had the ships to make it playable, so they give us stuff so we can play. But we've always said, look at what we're saying the ship can do and where it's supposed to fit.
All right,
And
I'm going to wrap it up here because we've literally talked in
going
like
around in
3
circles.
circles now for the last 10 minutes. So I hope you guys let us know your thoughts in the comments. Expat, what would you like to hear from people in the comments below?
I would like to hear what, you know, a lot of people are passionate about different types of ships, and different ships are their favorite. You know, what's your favorite ship, and are you happy with what they did?
Algared.
Yeah, pretty much the same. What are you hoping to see as changes? What ships do you think they've missed? Why and why?
I think for me, it's like, are you happy to wait and see what they do? Or are you more like the sky is falling and you don't understand? Did anything, and again, I'm not trying to have a go at people, I'm just trying to explain it. Did you come along later so you don't understand the changes that were talked about? So is it all new to you that they're going back to these original ideas? Because I think it's a sum of its parts problem. So,
Very briefly, can I just stand up for the person that has a differing opinion sometimes?
You can totally,
Like,
this whole show is about differing opinions.
Yeah, but I feel like as a community, we've got to be careful just, you know, shouting doomer. We've just, because sometimes, you know, sometimes, and I used this analogy before, sometimes you're Beverly Crusher and you wake up on the Enterprise and none of the crew is doing any of the things that the crew ever did before. And you're the one that everyone is looking at and saying, you're crazy, right? Yeah. So I think we've just got to be a little bit like aware and open to the idea. If somebody points something out that you think, hey, wait a minute, this is a bit odd, or this is a bit wrong, or this is a bit weird, you know, I would say be careful with the language where you just like, remove those people from the equation. You know what I mean? Those people do exist, and those people are going to buy ships, and those people are going to be a part of the community, and those people are still good for the game.
Yeah, it takes all types. So yeah, I can't disagree with that. But yeah, we like differing opinions here. Why the hell do you think we invited you? No, just kidding. Right. Where can people find you on the interwebs, Expat?
I'm twitch.tv/expatbrat, and yeah, you'll see me on socials every now and again, getting in arguments.
And besides sad love stories, what can people hope to see there?
Well, you'll just see somebody who wants to enjoy a sci-fi space experience that follows the design aesthetic that we've all grown to love from Star Citizen.
And freakishly weird grins from Foyt.
And of course, someone who follows the law and defends the righteous companies like Hurston Dynamics.
Well, not quite, Algared, but
what, you Empress of Pyro at one point? Like, yeah.
So, now, what was that, Expat? I could have swore I heard you some voices.
All right, then. With that,
we can discuss it at SitCon.
All right, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and thank you to everyone that went the extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. You'll have to excuse us with the lag this week. It's always here when expats here from Dubai. It causes a little bit of chaos, but other than that, all right. She's been Expat. He's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
See you, citizens.
Bye-bye.